Kia ora. Welcome to Working from the Inside Out. And today I am doing something a little bit different. I am outside in the round pen with my beautiful horse Chrome, who might wander in and out of our podcast. And I'm celebrating this beautiful warm weather, no rain today. So it's nice to just be outside enjoying it. So today I wanted to have a little chat about my journey to reconnecting, reclaiming, remembering my Māori identity, our culture, and my whakapapa. So I thought that I had been searching for this for about a year. Earlier last year, I listened to this wonderful podcast with Warwick Schiller and Rupert Isaacson, and he was sharing his journey with Indigenous healing and shamanism, and I was just so taken by it, and I thought, I want to explore this, but I thought before I look at any other culture, I need to learn my own first, and I felt very disconnected from that, and so I did a bit of a Google search, and I found little bits and pieces, but I couldn't find a lot, and at that time, I was not in a very healthy environment, and I think that the universe just said, it's not your time yet. And so it wasn't. And it was still in the back of my mind, and it wasn't until the beginning of this year, 2022, and I was so lucky to reconnect with a friend of mine who shared with me about the Tohunga Act and how it was essentially made illegal for Māori to practice their Indigenous healing. And I was just like devastated by that. And this is just one of the many things that colonisation did to our culture to create this trauma and disconnection. And I felt like I was alone in this feeling of not being Māori. I was proud to be Māori, and every time I had to fill out a form, I always ticked the box of like, I am Māori, but so disconnected from it. I couldn't speak, and I still can't speak te reo Māori. I couldn't tell you my pepeha, very basic, very like I knew little bits and pieces, but I couldn't stand up and ko waio, who am I? I couldn't tell you that because I didn't know who I was. And I think it's one thing to be able to recite our pepeha, and it's another thing to know it deeply inside ourselves, who we are, where we come from, our people, their stories. And that's the journey that I'm on at the moment. So the reason I share this story is because I've realized the more that I talk about this, the more I realize that I'm not alone in this feeling of being disconnected. I always felt like I was kind of the only one, which like how self-centered is that? But when I was growing up, when I was really little, we were in quite a Pākehā area, and at school, I felt like I was too brown to fit in. So I always felt like I never quite fit. And then we moved to a small town where it had a really strong Māori culture. And there I felt like I was too white to fit in, and I was whakama. I was too ashamed and embarrassed to be Māori. Because I didn't know te reo Māori, I couldn't speak the language and join in that way. I didn't know any of the tikanga, and again, I felt disconnected and like I didn't have a place of belonging. I can remember when we moved to this town and it was my first day at school, and we had to go around the classroom and introduce ourselves and say what our favourite food was. And I said, my name's Ellie, and my favourite food is boil up. And if you're not from New Zealand, this is a really common food in Māori families, with a big pot, and in it will be like pork bones and watercress and kumara and pumpkin and potatoes, and then we have like sausages and fry bread, and it's so good. But the kids laughed because here's this little white girl saying she likes boil up, and yeah, so it was in that moment I felt like, oh, I don't fit here either. So, but the more I tell my stories of feeling like I don't belong and being disconnected, the more people say to me, I felt the same way as well. And so now I feel like I need to have a voice and share my story, because maybe in sharing my story I might be able to inspire and perhaps lay a path for others to begin their journey to reconnect and reconnect to self, to whakapapa, to their culture. And in that process is so much healing, and I'm just at the very beginning of it, but it's been so beautiful and so healing so far. And in this, I went to a wānanga last week called Hinaira, with Te Whare Ai, or I don't have my pronunciation quite right, but I'm trying. And this is a part of the trauma, is feeling ashamed to even try. And so I am breaking down that barrier and that pattern and that trauma that is not mine to hold. It's not ours. We should be able to te reo Māori. So I'm going to keep on saying the words, and I know that one day they will come out beautifully and fluently, without any fear around it, or self-judgment. So anyway, I went to this wānanga, and at the end of the very first day, I had this realization that it isn't just 1 year that I have been searching for this. I've been searching for this my entire life without even realizing it. And by searching for it, it is the void, the hole that is there inside me, which I have tried to fill with external things by being a high functioner, a high achiever that sets goals and keeps on pushing, and has attracted unhealthy relationships and things that I could have easily just carried on my entire life doing, because it wasn't like I wasn't self-destructive. I wasn't doing things that were harmful. And so when we're doing these things, it's so easy to just carry on doing them, but having this feeling inside that we're seeking. And I think when we're seeking, that's not being our higher selves, that's not being our true selves. We can be curious and be whole at the same time, be curious and be learners. But when we're seeking, that comes from a place of not being whole within ourselves. So that was a beautiful and heartbreaking discovery at the same time, to learn that the piece that was missing was right here inside me all along. My whakapapa, my culture, my DNA, and every little action that I take to reconnecting and reclaiming and remembering gets me a little bit closer. And every time I have a conversation with somebody, or hear a story of my ancestors, or read something, or learn that our vowel system has a whakapapa, everything that we did and do has a reason for doing it. We don't just sit in a certain, this was one of the things that I learned at our wānanga, is, like in our seating layout, that had a whakapapa, a story to it as well, and a reason for sitting in that formation. And so when I hear these things, my heart and my being feels more whole. And I keep coming back to Gabor Mate sharing the root meaning of the word heal, and how it means returning to wholeness, and that we are already perfect as we are and as nature intended. And through colonisation and the trauma that our ancestors went through, we've had that taken away from us, but it's still there in us. All we have to do is reconnect and reclaim that back, and that is so powerful. So one piece of my journey has been learning my whakapapa, which my mum has done such a beautiful job in researching a big part of it, and she's got these documents there, and we've got books that I've been reading, and I learnt about my iwi being Ngāti Rangitihi. And I knew that we were from there, but I didn't really know it inside me. I didn't feel connected to it. I knew it academically, logically, but I didn't feel it inside. So, I learned about how my great-great-grandfather, Tiki Parker, the day before the eruption on June 10th, 1886, his mother, Meripeka Poia, she told him to pack his things, and he left their little settlement, Wainongonongo, at Rotomahana, which is where the pink and white terraces were. And he, along with his uncle, left to ride towards Te Teko and Matata. And he had been a messenger between Taupo and Matata. But this day, she said to him to pack his belongings. So that was something she didn't normally do. So they rode off, and of course they could hear the eruption and see it, and they rode back, I think, the next day, and were part of a search party. they could get so far on their horses until they weren't able to go any further, and then they had to go on foot. And unfortunately, it was not safe for them to carry on, to get any closer. And his mother, his grandmother, his stepfather, and step-siblings were all lost in the eruption. And when I started to really learn this and connect to it and grieve for them, I had this idea come into my mind that just wouldn't leave me alone, of wanting to retrace his footsteps and ride that journey on my horse from Rotomahana to Matata. And so that's been really beautiful and exciting, and conversations keep happening and connections keep happening, of talking to people and hearing stories and asking for permission to be able to ride places, and talking to other people who have done long distance rides, and what I might need to do to prepare for this journey. And so I'm so excited for that process, and I just hope that, for myself as well, I know that, and I can feel it already, just how healing that is. But I hope that in doing this, perhaps it can inspire somebody else who also feels disconnected. It might inspire them to take some steps towards reconnecting to where they're from. So it's a cool journey. It's a healing journey. And I'm just like, I'm loving it. It's almost like an addiction. Every day, wanting to learn more and read more and have more conversations, and so I'm so excited to share that and to bring that through into my mahi, into my work as well. And so you'll see me sharing little bits and pieces. You can already see it with my earrings and my hat, and wearing my tiki proudly. So this was given to me by my nana's father. So that is Tiki Parker's son. And bringing those elements back into my life where they deserve to be. So anyway, I'm going to round up this podcast here. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and even if you haven't, I don't care, because I love telling the story and I love this journey. So come along with me. Ask questions if you want. Share your story as well, because I would love to hear other people's stories of reconnecting to their culture, to their whakapapa, where they're from, no matter where you're from in the world. And I think if we all do our part in this work, I feel like when we know ourselves, then that's when we can show up as our best selves for others, for our horses. That's when we can heal some of these big problems that we have in the world, in our lives, and with our horses, with our children. For me, this journey has come back around to healing and getting to know myself through getting to know my ancestors. Ngā mihi, thank you for tuning in.